But yeah, there's yeah. I don't want to. Let's just try to maximize the amount of microphones because I know
I'll take
that
one.
you guys got great banter. So as we're not moving this thing around too much. First off, my first question is, when was the last time each of you has seen this film?
Well, you guys have seen, this is the quote-unquote restored version of the movie, I believe, right? I think it is. But Eric and I worked on that together. Is this working? Can you guys hear me? Yeah. About a year or two ago. So yeah, it's pretty fresh, right?
And Fantasia too, right? They showed a 4K version at Fantasia, right?
Okay.
It's fresh in our mind.
Okay, great. Because it's the kind of film to me too that is really like so. I don't want to say this in a condescending way, but okay. It's so like full-fisted that it kind of requires like the naivete of being in your 20s to feel like, oh no, we can do this. And you know, it being like shot in, was it shot in 96 or 97? As far as
96.
okay, so 30 years ago.
November?
Yeah.
Andre has a great quote about that where he said it's not that we did anything smart, we were just too stupid to think we shouldn't have been able to do it.
Well, what I wonder about it is because I rewatched it last night just now, and I was going through online just looking at the different theories, the different essays. This is like a really incredibly theorized film as to like what's the meaning behind it, whatever. Now, as far as like what your ideas for the film were when you were shooting it, and seeing how you've changed and how a film kind of stands on its own and metamorphosizes into the culture, like what do you think the film is about now compared to what it was when you wrote it?
Mr. Bajalik. Wow.
Yeah, throw him under the bus.
Yeah. He's a deep question. Okay, I think ultimately the film is probably about how difficult it is for people to get along, but also how essential it is for people to get along if we're ever going to survive.
It really doesn't hold up, does it?
That was not really something that we were thinking that much about at the time, certainly when we were writing it. I mean, ultimately it was just about how do you make an action, basically an action film, a horror film, thriller in one room, and the rest was more of a technical challenge.
On the technical challenges, after rewatching it last night and just seeing it with like more mature eyes and somebody who's been working in film, the first thing that jumped out at me was the doors and seeing the rollers and understanding like how those must have been made. And right away my thought was, oh, these clearly did not work well at some point in time. And then seeing seeing like the set design is incredible, but also like it's itself like looked like such a booby trap to me to like actually perform it. Whether it's the grates and ladders on the floor, I'm just like imagining from a production standpoint so many twisted ankles trying to light and act in that kind of.
There is no Vincenzo movie that's comfortable. It does not make comfortable films.
At least not for you.
No.
So like, then again, watching YouTube interviews with you and discussing the film and realizing like, oh yeah, those were all issues, especially the door at the start.
Yes. Well, the set almost killed me, literally. It almost fell on top of me at one point. But yeah.
So you never told us that. You never told the actor the thing fell down.
Yeah, because you were on top of it. That's when that happened. But
Yes, so let's begin by saying the production designer of Cube is Jasina Stefanovic, who unfortunately isn't in the room with us, but who's brilliant. He went on to with Terry Gilliam. Brilliant. The set design was brilliant, but we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of time to vet all the technical nuances of the set, of which there were many. It was a kind of Chinese puzzle box. And one of those details were the doors. So on the first day of shooting, nobody, not even Morris Dean Wynn, who plays Quentin, who's a pretty strong guy, could really open those doors. And yet, the whole movie is about opening and closing doors. And in fact, we had the very unique opportunity to make a movie in script order. That's almost never done with films for practical reasons. But in this case, because we were just in one room, it was like, why not? And how wonderful to move through the story, let the actors walk through the story in sequence as opposed to jumping all over the place like you usually do. Well, but immediately out the window, after the first day one, executive producers sat me down and said we might have to shut down the production. It was this whole thing. So the only solution was we had to go to the big long talkie scene in the middle of the movie. So David, at probably around midnight, got a call saying, "Oh, you know that scene where you have like four pages of dialogue? We're doing that tomorrow."
In the red room.
In the red room.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, we've got enough footage for like one take.
Yeah, and if I wasn't in love with David enough then, I was afterwards, because he, so as you can see, so beautifully nailed that scene. It was really extraordinary, and then that kind of put us on track, although it was pretty wobbly all along.
Now, with the production design as well, it provides an incredibly unique opportunity for you, Derek, to like explore this area, and especially having the lighting become a part of the production design itself. Now, famously, it's like one room with different gels over top of all the walls. And I imagine that was like the resets and the moving from room to room took some time. But as well, you know, you're shooting on film, you've got to blast a certain amount of light through those panels. And this is, you know, we're not dealing with LED lights either. This was back when everything was, you know, tungsten. Yeah.
We lit the entire set with 1,750 100-watt bulbs.
And I felt every one.
I was trying to figure out how to light it. We had no idea what to do. And I had a roommate at the time who had he was a photographer, and he had a light box for his negatives and his slides. And it was just a simple box with one bulb in it. And I looked at that, and oh my God, that's how we're gonna do it. So that's what we did. We built frames, 6 walls of frames, because there's 4 walls, a ceiling and a floor. And we used like 1,700 bulbs. And then we had to convince the film center who funded the film to spend $10,000 on colored gels. Nowadays, you could do it all in post, or you could do it with LED lights, but at the time, we couldn't do that.
You do it with Wi-Fi. Like you could like literally. Yeah.
At the time, it was a big challenge. It was a huge challenge. And also, we didn't know how to shoot it efficiently. We only had 20 days, and we were shooting on 35. But at that time, the 35 mil sync cameras were really heavy. They were like 25, 30, 35, 40 pounds with all the gear on it. So we ended up using an Aton, a small French camera. It was so loud at the time because of the old film cameras made so much noise. We had to take sound blankets and like wrap the cam and wrap myself in it.
Have you ever seen The Elephant Man?
I have.
Derek looked like for most of the shoot.
80% of that is handheld. right?
Yeah,
It's like almost
we decided to hand hold the whole camera. Today you can do it all on a cell phone. But at the time it was 35 mil, and it was great. We only had 20 days to do it. And on the very last day, we ran out of time. And the film center was pretty strict with us, and they said, that's it, you get 12 hours and then we're done. And we got to the end of the 12 hours, and I turned to Vincenzo, and he's had so many more shots to do. So so most of the crew left. We asked people to stay if they wanted to stay, and we ended up shooting 30,
a 30-hour day.
I think it was 36 hours. And he ended up with like a crew of about 4 people. But we got the very first scene where the guy's cubed, that part of the scene where he's actually cubed was done on the very last thing we shot, 1 hour, 30, whatever.
I remember just before we wrapped, there was, Vincenzo said, sit there. And I sat down and he said, look up, look sideways, look left, look right, look down, look happy, look sad. It was like, cut and wrap. This is acting.
In a way, it was a true indie film all the way, you know, and we stuck with it, and it was good.
Like, we just assumed it was a miserable failure, like at first. It was showed for like a week in this.
Oh, yeah, started.
Yeah.
We got the standard.
For anyone out there who is foolish enough to be trying to do this as a career, or even as a hobby, I've had the experience now several times where the worst possible situation leads to the best possible results, and this was one of them. I really thought the film was a disaster, and I just wanted to get through it so that maybe I would get to do it again. Because I knew if I didn't finish it, that would never happen. And, sorry, I'm going up, but you got all these beautiful questions, that's someone else.
So, no.
All is to say, like, you just never know. And when we were lucky enough to get into the Toronto Film Festival, the first review for the film came from, I won't name him, a certain critic, who I grew up reading and admiring. And it was possibly the worst review I've ever read for anyone. It was mean though. It called the film, killed his dog. It said the film was beneath contempt. That was the review that everybody in the entire Toronto Film Festival that year, those were the reviews they read, because it was the Now magazine.
It went down on the poster.
So I really thought, well, okay, yes, that just confirms this is going to be a catastrophe. And then we had the screening and it kind of went well, and then everything reversed. So I only mention this is just for anyone who goes through this, you just don't know. And I've had the reverse happen, where you think everything's fantastic and it's a disaster.
Andre, if I were to mention eating moss and cannibals to you, could you go into that and let the audience?
Thank God we didn't go there.
Yes, well, yeah, so there was, Vincenzo wrote an early draft of Cube, which was quite a bit different. And yes, there were cannibals in it. The rooms, there was food, there was water, there was like dripping water down the walls or something that you could survive on, and some kind of moss. And people were just like lived there for years or decades on end. And there was some kind of monster in there as well, wasn't there? Yeah. So yeah, it was very different. There was lots of stuff going on, and he gave me the script to read and said, "What do you think?" Well, I like this. The central concept is interesting, but it didn't have a lot of momentum. And I kind of thought, well, what if you just got rid of all of this stuff? Just focus on a small group of people. And there's nothing. There's no food. There's no water. So they have to escape or they're dead. And just make that the story. And that's kind of where we started working on it.
And that was a stroke of genius, because Andre, who was my roommate at the time, and already a very old friend of mine, was never gentle with his criticism, but always, dead on accurate. And the genius of what Andre did was he realized what's great about this concept is it's so simple. So just get rid of all of it. Like that's also the lesson I keep having to relearn. Just get rid of all of that stuff. And yeah, that was when it became kind of movie and it is.
And a lot of interviews that I listened to, you credited Andre as the one who really cracked it and realized that the cube itself is a combination lock.
Yeah.
Now, when I think of the film in that way, as the cube being oh no, I'm lost. That's it. When the cube is a combination lock. The tumblers of that lock are the characters. Now, early on, it says that nothing here is an accident, everything here is on purpose. So there is a purpose to all the characters being there. Now, since every character is there for a purpose, who was Julian Riching's character? As far as being the cop, the authority figure, or?
I always assumed he was part of some other group that we don't see. Like, he's on a completely separate tour through the cube, so he has no connection to our characters. The idea for that, it was really like a teaser, kind of like in the same way that, you know, Raiders of the Lost Ark or maybe a James Bond movie starts, where it's not necessarily, in a way, it's a microcosm of the story, but it's not necessarily connected to the main story.
Oh, so like a completely different time, like.
Yeah.
Completely, okay, like the first team in. All right. Now, one of the other things that I saw, and it seems like it's like a very meticulous script, and it's a very meticulous movie. But I just discovered the deleted scene of the room, the unfinished room. And for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's a scene where the characters walk into a room that isn't lit, and it's unfinished in every way, and they realize that this is not the way forward. But why was that scene removed, whether it's conceptually or just momentum, on your end?
That's a long time ago. I think it was just pacing, right? It was just that it was, and it didn't, the reason there was to set up, to leave a little breadcrumb for what we're gonna discover later, which is that the rooms are moving. And
It's like those little kids puzzles with like there's one space and then all the other little squares move around.
So that room effectively was composed of the exterior wall components of the rooms that would have been outside the cube. And it was kind of a nice idea, but when you're watching the film, it doesn't mean anything to you. And it was slowing down the action. And I remember we had to shoot it so fast. It wasn't shot very well either, too.
But it was like that empty slider piece that everything moved into. Okay.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things I learned is just like how tight knit of a group that you guys are, with Andrew as well, and I've known each other forever. Was this a situation where you wrote Worth specifically for David and Kazan specifically for Andrew? And
Specifically for Andrew.
The first person we thought of.
We knew he was capable of.
And he did a lot of research too, like he really went into that character a lot. I don't think you can do that now, I don't think that's.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you can.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's all a matter of like how it's digested, but yeah. But so, how did you feel, David, when you saw the role? And was there any other role where you were like, yeah, maybe this guy?
Well, I loved it. I mean, it was so much fun to play. Like, Wood was just, I think, he's the best character. I loved it.
He's the Bogart.
Yeah, that's it. And it just felt like an old movie star thing. It was wonderful. And also, but I think almost more than that, you talk about a tight-knit group, like this is all we ever wanted to do. Like this is like since we were kids, we did this in high school. We were 14, 15 years old. They're making little movies, and we're spending our summer vacations, shooting pretending to shoot our English teacher as a math teacher in little movies and things. This is all we ever wanted to do. And so the fact that it happened, we almost didn't get to enjoy it because we were just so busy just trying to get it finished. But it was such a wonderful feeling to have all these people you've grown up with. And this is the reason why you do what you do, and getting to make it. So that, the roles. There's no other role I want to play. I loved it. And also it was the first time I got to do a role where I didn't feel where I felt it was just reacting. It really you don't. He was so unmotivated to help people.
Yeah. But the other thing about David, it's okay, David, it's a given that David is a great actor, we all know that.
I
He's-
guess.
He is a filmmaker too, he's directed films since then, but he was such a supporter, like, a lot of people did not understand what this movie was at the time. It was very strange to people that we wanted to make a movie in one room or one set. That just wasn't the thing that was, there had been movies done like that before, but they tended to be more like plays, like My Dinner with Andre, or something very static.
And Lifeboat was, I guess,
Lifeboat was the thing that inspired, yeah, it was one thing that inspired us, the Hitchcock film. But David, this is the thing, and so there was I don't want to get into it, but there were elements in the making of the film that were not supportive of the movie or didn't seem to appreciate it. And David always did, like David would, and as did Derek, like that's kind of what got us through. It was, I know it seems ridiculous, shooting in one room should be simple, but it was an absolute fucking nightmare. And that's how you get through it, is with that kind of level of, support and love. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget when David was doing ADR, which is when you do a little additional voice recording after the film's cut. And it was the first time he'd seen anything cut. And I was just feeling so bad about it. Like I really thought I had failed it. I remember you said that you thought it looked great, and I'll never forget that.
I was terrified because when we went to the first screening, we did a screening at like, the Color Lab or something. There was just a few people there. And I sat, I was like, all right, great. And the movie starts, and I suddenly went, what if it's terrible? Literally, that was the first time it ever occurred to me that it might be. Like, I'd never really, I just like, I know these guys. Like, they're not gonna, and sure enough, like within, well, before Julian was, Julian, you just, I was like, oh man, this is exactly what I expected. In a weird way, even though I didn't know what to expect.
Speaking of like how like amazing the film looks considering constraints too, I think just even like walking in the framing that you managed to get there is like so phenomenal. Oh,
No, it was here.
I mean, I know very well you have ideas that can be impossible when you get on set, and you're the person who makes those impossible ideas possible. But I just watching it was like really overcome with like how much constraints in a small space like that you must have faced, but like what you managed to do.
It was so important to shoot it handheld. It just became so obvious to us. I remember at the beginning, we thought, I tried to get a dolly inside the cube, and we didn't have a really experienced crew. There were a lot of, it was mainly made of volunteers, and it just became, and I was a documentary shooter at that point, and I'd done a lot of documentary, and it just seemed to make sense to keep it very organic, and just to react, kind of what David was saying, just wanted the camera just to react to what was going on, and be as chaotic as possible, and be free. And working with the constraints of the set, handheld was a way to do it.
But it doesn't look handheld. Yeah, that's the impressive thing.
Well, it's steady.
It's because Derek's like 2 feet shorter than he was when we started. Woohoo, here we go, always, the energy is just, and that's like, a camera department can kill a movie. It's like, if they're not up for stuff, and Derek was the entire camera department. And was just so into the whole thing, like I just, how did you guys meet? Because of the film set. Because the film set, huh?
We did a film in an elevator, called Elevator.
That was the first time you met Vincenzo?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, we had done a short film before that, was the Dodo film.
Oh, that's true. Weirdly, I wasn't in that one.
Aren't you
Center
just-
exercise.
That's true. But you had done Helen Lee's movie, short film Prey, which is a short film that we did at the Film Center. The photograph was so beautiful.
But Elevated is a really good precursor for this film. There's 3 people stuck in an elevator, and everything goes wrong. And David is in it, and there's lots of blood and guts. It became the real kind of motivation for inspiration.
Yeah, it was a real proto cube, like as far as like.
Well, proof of concept,
Yeah.
I thought it was so brilliant to do that, because it's like, how do you make a movie in a box? This will never work. Well, we just have a short film, here you go, do it.
Yeah, except I wasn't that smart. But I did elevated because I thought Cube wouldn't get paid, because everybody rejected Cube, nobody wanted to do it, and I was hoping to do it at the film center, but they didn't want to do it. So when I was fortunate enough to have an opportunity to make a short film there, I did elevated, and then of course, ironically, they saw it and went, oh, now we understand how you're going to do Cube. Really? It was not. I wasn't that clever.
You need to rework that.
I was not that Machiavellian.
I'd like to, is there anybody out there that has any questions? Right there?
So there's a lot of good shots of you going side to side, and even some you falling to the floor, but you never go up. Was it just kind of like a challenge where like you had to like get on people's shoulders and open the doors, or did you try and do shots of them going up?
There's one, to this day, it haunts me. There's a shot, Quentin does go up early on in the green room, and he climbs up and he opens the door, and then we just didn't have time to do it properly, and every time I look at it, all I can see is Morris standing on a ladder. Not really hanging while he's doing that. So, yeah, it was hard. The set was interesting. It was 14 feet high. It was pretty treacherous, and it was all made out of plexiglass, which was 1 inch thick plexiglass. It was very, very heavy, and it was elevated 4 feet off the ground because we had to have people go through the bottom door, the floor door, and it was a little shaky. And there was one instance where we had actors up there, and something went off, and we got everyone down, and that was open set. In theory, was about to fall on me. So yeah, it was just it was not easy to work with, and it wasn't.
It was also kind of visually clunky, right? Like to have people climbing up and then going up through the thing. It takes so much time.
Like it's inherently not exciting to watch people climbing
Climbing
ladders.
ladders,
Yeah.
And we cheated, we cheated a lot. For the shots when people were coming through the ceiling, we shot them on the floor, and I think just turned the camera upside down. I mean, you learn to do that. You do that all the time. I had a career of 35 years of just cheating. That's what you do.
Lying.
But that's how you make films, and that's kind of how it was made.
It's the magic of cinema, right? Like the thing that, as I was making, was terrifying to me was most of the time we had one wall to set out. So when we wanted it to be, you could be encased in a 6-wall cube room. But that was very impractical, obviously, for getting people in and out and equipment out. So we usually had a wall out, but it was a really heavy wall that moved slowly, so we couldn't move it. So I spent a lot of the time shooting what felt to me like the proscenium of a stage. And I just thought, this is gonna feel so stagey. But your brain connects those two things. And we would do what we call French reverses, where you would shoot an actor looking camera right, and then you would just not change the lighting or move the camera, you just put the next actor in and have them looking camera left. And then when you cut them together, it looks like you're looking at two ends of the room. And that really was ultimately the effect. It was like kind of a film exercise. Yeah, it worked to our advantage, but it was frightening. I wasn't really sure that would all work in the end.
That sounds like a nightmare for continuity.
Yeah.
We had a great continuity, yeah.
Lisa Bruin.
Any other questions? First hand up, right there, I'm pointing. 2 people. Yes.
Me or him?
Behind you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I just wanna say, like, it's awesome to see something like this out of Canada that's so confident and competent at the time this film came out. So kudos to all of you guys. You really pulled up really well. The idea of the cube itself, where did that come from? 'Cause that's what really drew me into this originally, just like this mysterious kind of room. And I've never seen anything like that to this day. The set design is out of the park, but it gave it this otherworldly feel. I'm just curious how that came about. And
Yeah, it was a
David-
small apartment.
It's a small
Small apartment.
Yeah.
It was autobiographical. Well, it was in a way, right? Because we were, sort of early mid-20s at that point, and nothing was kind of going the way we hoped it would go. And things felt very kind of oppressive and bleak as bleak week.
Yeah, and then this, necessity is the mother of invention. I literally remember there's a stupid myth that you're supposed to make your first feature by the age of 26, because that's when Orson Welles and Citizen Kane. And I was in my early 20s, like, well, I better time to start thinking about this. And I remember vividly just going for a walk, going, well, what can I do? I know I'll have to finance it myself, so it probably should be, I don't want to shoot in locations because I can't control weather and so on. It should be in a studio, maybe, one set, but how do I don't want to do like people sitting talking in one room, that's boring. How can I have them moving? And then it just occurs to me, well, what if you could just reuse the same set? And that made me think, oh, it could be a maze of identical rooms, so it's a symmetrical maze, therefore it's a cube. And it just came to me like that. And then I went through this very long, convoluted process of trying to make that in a script, and that's where the moss and the water and the monsters came. And Andre fixed all of that.
So throw all that out.
Yeah, that's
Originally, you were gonna make it a white cube.
That would've saved us a lot of time.
Well, I think the original idea was to make it like in 16mm black and white, right?
Yeah.
It was cheaper, but I think once the script was written, we realized there's no way you can do this for nothing.
Yeah, no, and I think we realized, just practically speaking, you needed different colors just to geographically locate the audience.
What color was the best and worst to work in?
Very.
That's a big question.
I just remember the red room being hell. Like it felt, because you're in an oven. I mean, it was just, and the green room was kind of nice, I guess. The blue was okay, but no, the red was, like, we got to the point where it's like, oh, shoot with the red. Like, it definitely, and you'd start snapping at each other, and like, it was quite a, yeah, it was quite an interesting sort of psychological torture. I learned a lot about each other in the red room.
Do you want to ask your question now? I feel like, okay.
Well, it's me this time.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, who was your inspiration for like all of this? Like, I know you've mentioned before you like made a film in an elevator or something, and like I just wanted to ask, who was like your main inspiration for like both of these films?
A filmmaker? Which filmmakers?
Yes.
Like Lifeboat was a really big inspiration. If you ever see it, John Steinbeck wrote it, Alfred Hitchcock directed it. It all takes place on a lifeboat, and it is one of the most suspenseful films I've ever seen. It's incredible.
Das Boot, Submarine Building is a big one.
Well, Andre and I looked at a lot of prison films.
Prison films, POW, escape movies, something like that.
Yeah, but I think, people like Roman Polanski was brilliant at, working in confined spaces, and so, yeah, and I remember looking at I looked at Dawn of the Dead, and Night of the Living Dead, and, Cartier-Bresson. Help me out here, Bresson's Man Escaped. Yeah, we looked at a lot of stuff, so we stole from many.
And from, if I can say, from a lighting point of view, for me was The Shining. We were big fans of Kubrick, and in The Shining, that was one of the first films, not one of the first films, but one of the films where Kubrick learned how to light from inside the sets. And that was a big thing, because Hollywood in the old days was all about huge lights and off the sets. And he started to, in a lot of his films, build the lighting into the sets.
It's also one of the few horror films with bright lighting, where there's no real darkness or shadow or anything.
There was also Alien, had a lot of lighting like that. There was a lot of lighting built into the sets. So I think we were inspired. You were a big fan of Alien.
Oh, yeah, Alien.
Yeah, we ripped off a couple shots.
Yeah, no, Alien, sorry, I forgot Alien, because that's kind of a seminal.
Alien and Aliens really, there's two.
But growing up, you guys were Spielberg, right? That was the big, when you were like kids, like, that was your.
Oh, yeah, well, we were the Star Wars generation.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Close Encounters, Raiders, all that stuff.
I'm very sorry. I took up way too much time with my own questions, and I was just told that that was the last question. That's not up to me. But, thank you so much.